You've probably heard this from your grandparents. Maybe your neighbor said it. Maybe you read it somewhere online and just scrolled past because it sounded like old village talk. The story goes like this. If you let a rooster roam around your yard, centipedes won't dare come near. And if a centipede does run into a rooster, the centipede loses. Every time. Now, most people hear that and think, okay, sure, folk wisdom, whatever. But then, someone actually tests it. They drop a giant centipede, the kind with the red head and the yellow legs, the kind that makes grown adults flinch, right in front of a rooster. And the rooster just walks up to it, pins it down with one claw, and tears it apart. No hesitation. No reaction to the venom at all. That's the part that stops people cold. Because that centipede, that's a Scolopendra subspintips, one of the most venomous centipedes on the planet. Its venom can put a healthy adult human in the hospital. It causes intense burning pain, swelling, nausea, sometimes a racing heart. There are documented cases of people needing emergency care after a single bite. And the rooster just ate it like a snack. So the real question isn't whether this is true. There's video evidence. There are studies. This is documented. The real question is, what is going on inside a rooster's body that makes it completely ignore venom that would drop a person? Here's the thing. When most people hear roosters are immune to centipede venom, they file it under superstition. Old wives' tale. The kind of thing your grandmother believes along with rubbing tiger balm on everything. But this isn't superstition. And it isn't a coincidence. Researchers have actually looked at this. Venom biologists, ornithologists, people who spend their careers studying exactly how toxins interact with animal tissue. They've looked at roosters specifically, and what they found doesn't just explain why roosters survive centipede venom. It explains something much bigger about how birds evolved, how venom works, and why the same molecule that destroys human nerve signals does absolutely nothing to certain animals. So, here's what we're going to figure out together. Where does this resistance actually come from? Is the rooster's skin too thick? Does it have some kind of antidote running in its blood? Or is something happening at the molecular level, something so deep inside the cell, that the venom never even gets a chance to do its job? And here's the part that most articles skip over. Roosters are not completely untouchable. There are real limits to what they can survive. We're going to talk about that too, because understanding the limits is actually what makes the whole picture make sense. This goes deeper than you'd expect. A lot deeper. Let's go back about 300 million years. That's roughly when the first centipedes showed up on land, before dinosaurs. Before most reptiles, centipedes were already here, already hunting, already using venom to take down prey. They had hundreds of millions of years to develop one of the most complex venoms in the animal kingdom. Modern centipede venom, specifically from Scolopendra species, isn't just one toxin. It's a cocktail. Researchers at the Chinese Academy of Sciences published a study in 2018 identifying over 500 different compounds in Scolopendra subspintips venom. 500. Inside one bite. That venom contains enzymes that break down cell walls, neurotoxins that block nerve signals, and a specific peptide called S-Tex that targets potassium ion channels in the heart. In mice, a concentrated dose causes cardiac arrest within minutes. In humans, a bite from a large Scolopendra causes immediate intense pain, described by most victims as a 7 or 8 out of 10. Swelling starts within minutes. Some people develop systemic reactions, fever, vomiting, irregular heartbeat. Children and elderly people face higher risk of serious complications. The pain can last 12 to 48 hours even with treatment. Now here's where most people's thinking goes wrong. You'd assume that an animal resistant to this venom must have some kind of neutralizing agent, something in the blood that breaks down the toxin before it spreads, like an internal antidote. That's the logical guess. That's not what's happening. The rooster doesn't neutralize the venom. The venom gets in just fine. It travels through the tissue. It reaches the nerve cells. And then, nothing happens. Because the specific channel the venom is designed to attack, the exact molecular lock that SSTX is built to fit into, is shaped differently in birds. The key reaches the door and finds out the lock was changed a long time ago. That's the real story. And it starts with a single protein. Let's talk about what centipede venom is actually trying to do when it enters a body. The most dangerous component in Scolopendra venom is that peptide we mentioned. Its job is simple and brutal. It finds a specific type of protein channel on the surface of your cells called KCNQ potassium channels. These channels control the flow of potassium ions in and out of the cell. When they work normally, your heart beats at the right rhythm, your nerves fire at the right speed, your muscles contract when they're supposed to. When SSTX blocks those channels, everything goes wrong at once. Your heart gets confused, your nerves start misfiring. In small animals like mice or rats, the result is fast, cardiac arrest within 3 to 5 minutes at a high enough dose. In humans, it's slower but still dangerous. Irregular heartbeat, chest tightness, in severe cases a real risk of cardiac events, especially in people with existing heart conditions. The 2018 Chinese Academy of Sciences study that identified SSTX also tested it directly on human cardiac cells in a lab setting. The results were clear. SSTX caused measurable disruption to potassium channel function at very low concentrations. This is not a weak toxin. It is specifically, precisely designed, through hundreds of millions of years of evolution, to hit this one target hard. So what happens when it hits a rooster's cells? The same thing that happens when you try to plug a European adapter into an American outlet. It doesn't fit. Birds have a variant of the KCNQ channel where a small number of amino acids, the building blocks of the protein, are arranged slightly differently from mammals. Not a lot. We're talking about a few positions out of hundreds, but those few positions are exactly where STX needs to grip. And in birds, that grip point isn't there in the same shape. The venom arrives. It finds the channel. It cannot lock on. It drifts away without triggering the cascade that would cause cardiac disruption. The rooster's heart keeps beating at a normal rate, while the centipede's most powerful weapon does nothing. That's not luck. That's 150 million years of birds and venomous prey existing in the same ecosystems, with birds that had slightly different channel shapes surviving better, reproducing more, and passing that variant on, generation by generation, until it became fixed in the bird lineage. One small molecular difference. Massive survival advantage. Now you might be thinking, okay, the venom doesn't affect the heart, fine. But what about the pain? What about the local tissue damage? A centipede bite still injects venom directly into the skin. Doesn't that hurt? Doesn't that cause swelling and burning even in a rooster? This is where the second layer of protection comes in. And it's more physical than chemical. A rooster's leg, which is almost always where a centipede would strike during a fight, is covered in scales, not soft skin. Hard keratinized scales, layered and overlapping, similar in structure to reptile scales. The thickness of these scales on the lower leg and foot area averages about 1.2 to 1.8 millimeters in a full-grown rooster. That doesn't sound like much until you realize that centipede fangs, the forcipules, the modified front legs that deliver venom, on even a large Scolopendra subspinaps, are only about 2 to 3 millimeters long. So the fang is trying to punch through a barrier that takes up more than half its total length before it even reaches soft tissue. Penetration depth is severely limited. The amount of venom that actually enters the bloodstream from a bite on the scaled leg is a fraction of what would enter a human forearm. Combine shallow penetration with a cardiovascular system that doesn't respond to the venom's main compound, and you start to see why the centipede has essentially no functional tools against this animal. But here's what's interesting about rooster behavior specifically. When a rooster confronts a centipede, it doesn't reach down with its beak from a safe distance like a cautious animal. It steps on it first. It uses the scaled foot to pin the centipede to the ground, immobilizing it completely before the beak comes in. The centipede's only real defense, that fast whipping strike with the forcipules, requires mobility. Pin it down, and the weapon is gone. Roosters didn't learn this behavior. They don't think it through. It's instinct, the result of countless generations of birds that approached centipedes carelessly getting bitten with low effect, while birds that developed the pin-first behavior wasted even less energy dealing with the venom that did get through. The behavior and the biology evolved together. That's the part most people miss. Okay, so the rooster pins the centipede, bites it, and swallows it. The venom didn't affect the heart. The scales blocked most of the bite. But now there's a live centipede, or pieces of one, going into the digestive system. What happens to the remaining venom inside the body? This is where a lot of people assume the rooster must have some special enzyme, some chemical in the stomach that destroys venom. Not exactly. Venom is at its core protein. Complex protein, yes, but protein. And the rooster's digestive system, like most bird digestive systems, is extremely acidic and extremely efficient at breaking down protein. The stomach pH in chickens sits between 2.5 and 3.5. That's roughly the same acidity as car battery acid. At that pH level, most protein structures denature and break apart within minutes. The same peptide compounds that cause cardiac disruption when injected directly into the bloodstream become harmless amino acid fragments when they pass through a highly acidic digestive environment. The structure that makes SSTX dangerous, that specific folded shape that lets it grip potassium channels, falls apart under that kind of acidity. This is actually true for most venomous animals. Venom is dangerous when it enters the blood. Swallowed venom, in an animal with a functional stomach and no mouth sores, is largely neutralized by digestion. The rooster's stomach isn't doing anything miraculous. It's just doing its normal job, and that normal job happens to destroy what the venom is made of. What makes the rooster different from, say, a dog swallowing a centipede isn't stomach acid. Both animals have acidic stomachs. The difference is what happens in the seconds before swallowing. Whether the bite during the kill attempt causes dangerous systemic effects. In a dog, a centipede bite on the nose or mouth during the attack could cause enough venom absorption to cause real distress. In a rooster, the scaled feet do the dangerous work. The beak finishes it quickly, and by the time anything gets to the stomach, it's already mostly a protein delivery problem, not a venom problem. The whole system works together. Scaled legs take the hit. Ion channels don't respond. Stomach acid cleans up whatever's left. Here's where we have to be honest. Roosters are not invincible. The resistance to centipede venom is real and documented, but it has clear boundaries. Understanding those boundaries is actually important, because if you walk away thinking roosters are some kind of venom-proof animal, you've missed half the story. First, body size matters. A Scolopendra subspinops gigantea, the giant Amazonian centipede, which can reach 30 centimeters in length, produces venom volume that scales with its size. A full-sized adult specimen can inject significantly more venom in a single bite than a standard Southeast Asian Scolopendra. At high enough venom doses, even the partial cardiac channel resistance in birds can be overwhelmed. There are no well-documented cases of giant Amazonian centipedes killing roosters specifically, but venom researchers note that dose thresholds exist for every resistance mechanism. Second, the resistance is specific to the channel-blocking component. Centipede venom also contains phospholipase enzymes that break down cell membranes and cause direct tissue damage regardless of ion channels. A bite that penetrates deep enough on an unscaled area like the comb, the wattle, or around the eye can still cause localized swelling, tissue death, and infection. Roosters are not immune to tissue damage. They are resistant to the systemic cardiovascular effects. Third, young chicks don't have the same scale development as adult roosters. Their legs are softer, penetration depth from centipede fangs is greater, and their body mass is low enough that even a partial venom dose represents a higher concentration per kilogram of body weight. Centipedes do occasionally kill young chicks. This is documented in poultry farming literature. The protection that adult roosters have is not fully present in juveniles, so the accurate version of the story is this. Adult roosters, due to a specific genetic variant in their potassium ion channels, combined with scaled leg protection and an efficient digestive system, are highly resistant to the standard effects of Scolopendra centipede venom under normal encounter conditions. That resistance has real limits based on venom dose, bite location, and age. That's a much more precise claim than roosters are immune. And precision is what separates actual science from the folktale version. Remember where we started. Your grandmother's yard. The rooster walking around like it owns the place. The centipede that never seems to win. Turns out your grandmother wasn't wrong. She just didn't know the molecular biology behind why she was right. What's actually happening is three separate systems working at the same time. A potassium ion channel shaped just differently enough that the venom's main weapon can't grip it, scales thick enough to limit how much venom gets in during the attack, and a stomach acidic enough to destroy whatever protein-based toxin makes it that far. No single one of those three things makes the rooster safe on its own. All three together make the centipede's entire toolkit basically useless against this one specific animal. And that didn't happen by accident. It happened because for millions of years, birds that had these traits survived encounters that killed other animals. They ate. They reproduced. They passed the traits on. Evolution doesn't plan anything. It just keeps what works. The folk wisdom got the conclusion right. Science just explains why. If this kind of thing interests you, where old observations turn out to have real biological explanations hiding underneath, there's a lot more where this came from. Hit the like button if you learned something today. Subscribe if you want to keep going deeper, and send this to one person who still thinks science is boring. They need to see this.